New York Post today, Brett Tolman, former federal prosecutor, U.S. attorney for Utah, is here. Master manipulators, she calls the GOP, and says it's a conspiracy to convince people crime is rising. I can sit here and talk all day long with true, factual stats about the crime surge in virtually every major city in the United States, Brett.
Dagen, good to see you. Thanks for having me on. I will say that I guess I'm not surprised by anything anymore, that we can, look at something and we can tell the American public something different than what's actually happening. That's definitely what the Democrats are doing right now. When I travel the country, I meet with legislators, I meet with governors and leaders in communities, and they are all having to deal with a rise in violent crime. And it is in every type of community right now. It is something that we should be aware of, and we should be speaking honestly about, and not trying to use as a narrative in order to win an election. This is, at its heart, the most important element of the government is to take care of its citizens.
There's a op-ed that, the New York Post did, that ran the numbers comparing 2019 before these reforms went into place. Reforms, and that's a loose definition for that word, including, say, limiting bail for most offenses, district attorneys turning over literally millions of documents to defense attorneys on cases that are ultimately pled out, and then also making it harder to punish people who violate their parole. Those are some of the reforms here in New York. But comparing the period of 2019 before these policies went into place to 2022, murders up over this period, 32%, robbery up 32%, felony assault, burglary, grand larceny, both up double digits, auto thefts up 148%. So all major crimes just in New York, a more than 32% gain. And it's the same problem in places like Philadelphia with Larry Krasner as the DA. But correct me if I'm wrong, in Chicago, they're actually implementing this exact type of bail reform as we speak.
Dagen, reform that doesn't keep the public safe or doesn't consider victims of crime is not true reform. There's plenty of areas in the criminal justice system that we can fix. It's not performing well. We are failing when we have a 60 to 70% recidivism rate in this country. But the answer is not to eliminate the only deterrence you have, which is the predictability of prosecution and the ability of judges to hold people in custody pre-trial if they pose a threat to the community. That's what most of the crime that we see that is ravaging in these larger cities is a result of criminal justice reform that is not thoughtful and is not built on the best practices. There are other states that are doing it and doing it far better.
Before we move on, this is the same thing we talked about all show. It's a denial. It's a denial that people are being hurt by crime. And you're literally, when you call it a GOP conspiracy, Kathy Hochul is essentially spitting on the families of people who've been murdered or assaulted across this state. Real quick, before we move on.
Dagen, my older sister was a victim of a horrific violent crime. We never caught their perpetrators. And for years, she's dealt with that. As a family, we know what it feels like to not be able to catch those individuals that have hurt someone so dear to us. Mm-hmm. And it's offensive for this governor to be, laying the blame at a GOP conspiracy rather than where it really lies.
Right. And it's offensive for Larry Krasner to say the Republicans are racist for talking about it when his policies, where he will not enforce the law, those policies are racist. So
Great
chaos
point.
is continuing at Biden's border crisis as it rages on. Fox obtaining video of El Paso, Texas, showing a large group of migrants trying to illegally storm across the border. They were waving huge Venezuelan and Honduran flags. Border agents forced to push them back by firing non-lethal rounds of pepper balls. CBP saying a migrant assaulted with an agent with a flagpole. Border security, of course, a huge midterm issue. And Arizona's Governor Doug Ducey in a battle with President Biden for trying to defend his state. Ducey using stacked shipping containers to seal openings in the Yuma border wall. Biden says he plans to go after Ducey for what he says is trespassing on federal land. Ducey firing back saying this, quote, our border communities are overwhelmed by illegal activity as a result of the Biden administration's failure to secure the southern border. Arizona is going to do the job that Joe Biden refuses to do, secure the border in any way we can. We're not backing down. Brett?
It's one of the greatest failings of an administration to allow what's happening at the southern border. Make no mistake. What we're seeing now is not just, refugees trying to get across because they want a better life. We're seeing an invasion, and we're seeing it on massive scale, and we're seeing the federal government refusing to acknowledge it. So I give total respect to the governors trying to do what they can do in order to stop it.
Brett, thank you so much for being here. Brett Tolman.
Thanks,
always.
Dagen.